Namaste. Welcome to our monthly satsang. I usually have a commercial at this time, but actually I don't have anything particular. So we'll have to skip the materialism and go right to our questions. No, I do have a commercial. At this address, let me do like this so it will be, there we are. Gita Talks, OCOY.org. I have finished my commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, and there are, I believe, 93 talks posted. So they're all found there, and I hope that it'll be somewhat helpful to people. I love giving them because I love thinking about them. I love thinking about those incredible truths that are found perfectly expressed in the Bhagavad Gita. And in fact, I cried with relief when I came to the end of the Gita, not because I was glad to be at the end, but because I thought, at last I know it. Talk about the mists and clouds that passed away and the light of day has come. That's how it was for me when I read the Gita. And it's always wonderful. In fact, I have 3 translations of the Gita. But in the evening, where I sit, I always have 3 translations of the Gita, and every so often, I'll just open up and start reading, and sometimes look in the Sanskrit text and so on. But anyway, there is no end to the wonder. There's no end to the wonder of Sanatana Dharma. And an ideal capsulization of that Dharma is the Bhagavad Gita. So then, all right. Ready for questions. Living in a family setting, how to avoid the lies, parenthesis, illusion, of other family members while feeling dispassion towards them. Well, of course, you should keep in mind, number 1, the divine self is inside of them. Now, the divine self may be trapped, and their deluded minds lead them to actions and words that are totally destructive even, or idiotic, anti-dharmic, and it isn't very pleasant. In fact, it can be very annoying. Now, meditation is the main thing, and while it's all going on, don't forget the japa of Soham. You can't keep balance of mind if you don't have that japa going constantly, going steadily. And again, as I say, your daily meditation. Because while they're doing it, if you keep up the japa, 1, it'll help you not get upset by it, but 2, it may open you up to an inner spiritual inspiration to know what to say. Or sometimes to not do anything. Or you just say, well, that's your view and I understand. Smile. Always let them know you love them, even if you don't love what they're doing. But sometimes you have to say, stop it. Right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you have to read it out. Now that has to be. For example, there was someone in my family who every often like say, I don't know why you do that. I don't know why you believe that. and who started in one time, and I said, listen, you have a religion that's on the level of hogs slopping at the trough. Don't talk to me about my religion anymore. And that was the end of it. Now, that wasn't nice, and I'm not recommending it, but you understand, Sri Ramakrishna told a very good parable. There was a snake that everyone in the area was afraid of, a cobra. He would run after people. He would to bite them. So they were scared of him. And a sadhu came and spoke with him. And this isn't just a mild story. Believe me, you can talk to animals and they can subliminally understand. And snakes are very wise. So he said to him, you've got to practice nonviolence. You can't be doing this. Why should people be afraid of you? Because you could kill them. You shouldn't be killing them. So the cobra stopped chasing people and so on. And when they saw that human beings, what they are, well, what they are is God, but what they are not at the moment and are ensconced in being what they are, they thought, well, fine. So they go and they throw rocks and bricks at the cobra and run up sometimes and give him a good stomping. And they did it one time, and he was actually vomiting blood. And the sadhu came by and saw it and said, well, what are you doing? What's happening? And he said, well, you told me I had to be quiet and peaceful. And so there are people here that when they are bored and don't have anything else to do, they come out and terrorize me to try to drive me back in my hole, or they hit me with things, and they stopped on me this time. And the sadhu said, I said you shouldn't bite them, but I didn't say you couldn't hiss at them. So sometimes you have to hiss. Don't bite, but hiss. And some people, you understand? Now, I don't know how tight your end of the house, but if you have to, think about getting away. Now, that sounds very drastic. Oh, are you a monk who say it, etc., etc.? Yeah, I'm a monk that can say it because I know how wonderful it is to have nobody that can say, hey, you belong to me, and I can say and do what I want. It's over with. Of course, I'm 84 years old, and they're all long gone anyway. But do try to have dispassion, but if they don't deserve dispassion, don't give it to them. See, being holy is not being noble and stupid. Jesus took a cord and knotted it so it hurt more, and he beat the money changers in the temple and drove them out, and he kicked over their money changing stands. Now, is that ahimsa? Is that, oh, my poor dear children, I wish you wouldn't do this, boo-hoo. No. He said, it is written, my house shall be called the house of prayer. You've made it a den of thieves. And out he went. When St. Peter said something, he was his disciple, right? When he said something stupid at one time, Jesus said, get away from me, Satan, you are an offense to me. Now, that shouldn't be standard behavior, but if you have to do it. The one thing is this, your integrity has to stay intact. And that doesn't mean saying, oh, well, I love them though they're mean and so on. Well, ask yourself, are you loving them because they're mean and quiet because you're so holy? Or is it because you're a coward? And is it because you don't have enough moral fiber to stand up? Sorry, I mean, I have full sympathy, but I don't have full sympathy, any sympathy, with weakness and compromise. You see? There was a great saint in India, one of the greatest. Her name was Mother Krishnabai. She lived in South India. People came from all over India to meet her, and she was, in a sense, a raft that carried many people over their delusions. Now, how did she get that way? I'll tell you exactly how she got that way. She was living in a joint family, a very large joint family in India. And it was just wrong. And the whole atmosphere of the family, the behavior of the people is wrong. And certain other people were really pressuring her and didn't like her spiritual life. And frankly, wanted to take her away from spiritual life. So she said, I'm out of here. She had 2 children. Her husband was dead, by the way. She was a widow. So she had no one to defend her, if he would have. And so she said to her 2 children, first of all, she said, I'm going. Of course, big eruption of emotion. And she said to the children, you can come with me, but know this, we'll depend on God alone. And of course, they brought them to her and they were crying, oh, mama, mama, mama. But when she said, we'll depend on God alone, some scars came out. And they said, we don't want to go with you. And she said, fine. She walked out and was free. And she, by God's grace, lived at the ashram of the great Swami Ramdas, Papa Ramdas. And she became a great self-realized master. And saved many people. And her example inspired many people. And she did it because she did the right thing, and she was able then to do that. And by the way, sometimes we're put in a situation when we have to say, I will do it, and then God arranges it so we don't have to do it. So don't be afraid. Fear not. Because God is seated in your heart, and God is seated in their heart. But they'll have to deal with that, and you'll have to deal with it, and make sure you don't lose awareness of that God in your heart. Okay, fine. It's rather lengthy. But I can't tell you how wonderful it was the day I said, I'm out of here, and left that brain-dead town and the brain-dead people, many of whom I loved, behind, and went to where there were yogis, where I could learn to be a yogi. And I used my time there, and as a result, God had mercy on me, and I got the desire to go to India, and I went to India, and there I became a sannyasi, and came back and maintained that life, and it has been wonderful. Yes, there have been struggles, there have been difficulties, but I'll tell you this, when you follow your swadharma, there always is peace at the core of your being. All right. What to do if you feel the strong desire to deepen your spiritual life and devote your time to meditation and spiritual practice, rather than worldly activities as much, even anymore, but are married to a spouse who is agnostic and doesn't share your faith or interest in spirituality? Okay, I'll tell you what a lot of so-called yogis and swamis would be too cowardly to tell you. If you can live at peace, even if there's a little bit of, and do your sadhana, fine. Just go ahead and do it and be patient and love. If you can't, tell them, back up or else I'm out of here. And if they explode and they don't like that, then get out. Go live in a homeless shelter if you have to for a while, but be a real human being. Have some self-respect. And they will respect you more in a homeless shelter than they don't in some families. But don't give up your life. Because if you give up your life, okay, now I'm going to be like a Christian and try to scare you. How many lives will it be before you'll even know there's a possibility to realize God? So do it. I'm not afraid to say this. You know, sometime I may tell you about what I call the Swami divorce case, in which I was taken to court as the reason why one of my yoga students left her utterly abusive husband and family. And of course, she was a meek person, a very receptive person, actually. But she practiced meditation, and that stopped. And one thing she did, when one of her wiseacre daughters, who was a professor in the university, who would come home every month, let me tell you about it. After all, we have time, I think. Here's what happened. One time she told me her daughter was a professor at UC Davis. It's a big intellectual. So was Daddy, supposedly. So anyway, she said to me, I'm really not looking forward to this coming week because my daughter is coming back for a visit. And every time she comes for a visit, there's always an upset. She described it to me, but I'll give that later. And actually, in that case, I didn't give any advice. I just kind of sympathized with her and told her goodbye. All right, so the next time I saw her, I said, well, how was your daughter's visit? She said, I'll tell you. She came in, my husband picked her up at the airport and brought her home. And she came in and, hi, Mom. And aren't you glad to see me? I said, no, I'm not glad to see you. Because I know that though you're bouncing in right now, and you're going to spend a day or two telling me about your latest psychotherapy, because this woman always had some new psychotherapy that had cleared up everything for her, all right? And you're going to tell how your new psychotherapy has done wonders and you're just zooming and so on. But before the week is over, you'll be standing right where you are now, and you'll be crying, and you'll be telling me that I ruined your life and made you psychotic because when you were 9 years old and a brat, I one time slapped you. And I'm not interested in hearing any more of that nonsense. Well, guess what? There was no recriminations and crying on that visit. And the daughter behaved herself and went back home. Because that woman had begun getting in touch with herself, and the self is not something to be pushed around by saying, oh, God's will be done, and so on. So, you're a woman, but I say to you, man up. And let them know if they want to live with you in peace, and they'll leave you alone and give you the time and the freedom to practice, then get out of there. As I've said before, go to a homeless shelter if you have to. You're not a fool. If you weren't intelligent, you wouldn't be a yogi. Stupid people not only can't find God, stupid people don't try to find God. Therefore, you have a divine self. Honor that divine self. Oh, but what about my marriage? They're not worth anything in your spouse's mind. Otherwise, you wouldn't be treated like that way, and they wouldn't have this attitude toward you. Agnostic, my eye. It means I don't want God in my life because it's mine. So give it to them and let them leave it. Fiddlesticks. All right. Don't think, well, he's mighty courageous when he's just talking. Listen, I have spent much of my youth resisting. Yeah, I'm being abused for it, by the way. It wasn't all fun. God never spoke to me from heaven and said, "Why, you wonderful, special, chosen devotee of mine." No. There was one man that went through hell, and he thought he would break. But he didn't. And when it was all over, suddenly God was like all surrounding me, felt God surrounding me. Of course, that's the way it is always. And he said, "Lord, where were you? Where were you when I was going through that?" And God said, "I was in your heart, waiting to see what you would do." So God is with you. Know this. What is your take on Krishna to Swayam Bhagavan? Well, I'm not quite sure. I don't know the context of this to look it up. But there'd be two ways of saying it. Somebody said to Krishna, "You are, by nature, by existence, God." Or Krishna said this to somebody else. Krishna was absolute God. He was an avatar. So that's it. And you and I are avatars. But we're unawakened avatars. So we too are Bhagavan. And well, if we're Bhagavan, why don't we be able to? Because Bhagavan can do anything he wants. Bhagavan can come down and play like a fool. That's the truth. Well, why? Become God and then you'll figure it out. And that may sound like a cop-out, and it is one way because I could give some explanations, but the subject doesn't interest me. Therefore, it's the end of it. What is Shakti and how does it affect us? Well, Shakti is everything that we know of now in our present life. The cosmos is Shakti, energy, divine power. But you see, since everything is God, when we come down to it, it's really a thought in the mind of God. Yogananda used the term dream, and I kind of like that term also. But God is dreaming this relativity, and we are dreaming it along with him. But we have lost that contact. We had it once. We've lost it. And therefore, we are overwhelmed by it. But it's all Shakti, and you and I are Shakti. And our thoughts are Shakti, and our perceptions are Shakti. And there is nothing that is movement or progression from one thing to another, whether we mean it by an action or whether we mean it by thought. And it's all divine. And you and I can master it totally. Because we are not Shakti. We're Chaitanya. We're consciousness, as is God. And it is possible for us to direct it. And if we aren't at the point where we can fully direct it, we can certainly be at the point where, if we need to, we can endure it. And certainly, we can change it around. In other words, if you sit on attack, you don't say, "Oh, beloved God, please release me from this pain." You stand up and you change it. We really are in charge of our lives. So, Shakti is God, and you and I are living and moving in God because we are God. It's not just a nice thought, it's a nice reality, but if we're not yogis, we'll never know it. And even if we have that concept now and hold it in a previous life, will we have it? We can't take a chance. What is the difference between Iswara and Parameshwara? Well, Iswara is the guiding consciousness, who is a being, of our relative world and our whole level here of creation, and is the personal God. It has qualities. He can love, not hate. But God can give you a good punch if you need it to wake you up. And we'll say God is angry, but it's not anger at all. It's therapy. And all the worlds are existing in this. Think of the entire cosmos. But there are many cosmos, you see. And each cosmos has its own Iswara that is so powerful and so vast that to our little minds, if we were able to get a glimpse, we say, well, there's nothing more beyond that, but there is. So there are many Ishwaras. And Parameshwara is the Ishwara beyond which there is nothing. Because everything is in Parameshwara. Krishna is said, what it says was when it was in his palace in Dwarka, and the doorkeeper came and said, Brahma is the creator of the world, the creator and director of the world. Every world has a Brahma and a Vishnu and a Shiva. And he said, Brahma has come and wants to speak with you. I mean, Brahma, of course, normally doesn't have a body, but he had taken a form. And Krishna said, well, go ask which Brahma it is. So the doorkeeper was a bit flummoxed, but he went out and said to Brahma, well, Sri Krishna says, which Brahma is it? Well, Brahma said, well, how many Brahmas are they? Take me on in to see Krishna now. So he took him in. And so when he came in, of course, he saluted Krishna respectfully, but said, why did you ask which Brahma? He said, well, you're just one Brahma. There are myriads, tens of millions, tens of thousands, and tens of millions of Brahmas because in every world system, the Sanskrit word is Brahmanda, there is a Brahman. Now you're the five-faced Brahman. Brahman, sorry, not Brahman, but Brahma. You have five faces. This whole cosmos is set up then on five. Human beings have five senses. They have, therefore, five sense organs. There are five elements in this creation. Every sentient being has five bodies, five koshas, and it all goes on and on. It's fives. But there are 10-faced Brahmins and they have, and so in their worlds, there are 10 senses and 10 bodies for each person, etc. And so it goes on. And so he just touched him and Brahma saw it, and he couldn't count the number of Brahmas. So he didn't feel like he was so big and so powerful as he had before. Such as it is. So, we aspire as yogis to get to that infinity. Because you see, you drop this body, which sure isn't much, and you take on higher and higher bodies as your consciousness permutates into higher and higher levels. And you have totally different vehicles. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And yes, you and I may direct worlds ourselves until we finally have the good sense to get tired of all that and not like being so powerful. And then we say, okay, back to the reality. And then we realize, I may be the Lord of all these worlds, and I'm answering prayers. And see, if you can have a little bit of consciousness, you can have an infinite consciousness. Because consciousness can't really be limited. It's our bodies that limit it. It is our whole state and embodiment itself, of course. So infinity is in us. A real part of us is infinite. So why not get busy and go there? Why just fiddle around in this world? That's a real fact. So what's the difference between you and I and the infinite? Answer, nothing different in quality. The wave is ocean water. The whole ocean is ocean water. And as Shankara said, the wave cannot say, I am the ocean, but the ocean can certainly say, I'm the wave, but the wave can say, I'm a part of the ocean, and I am water, and my essential nature is absolutely the same as the whole ocean. This is our truth. This is the truth of our being. Therefore, Arjuna, be a yogi, because only a yogi really knows it. A lot of people say it. Oh, Lord, have I heard talks in India by these grumpy old sadhus that come in and sit there and look around. Then they babble some Sanskrit, and then they sit there and going on. And see, when you walked into the presence of Swami Sivananda and Anandamayi Ma, you knew you were spirit. You didn't look at them and say, oh, mighty God, and fall down. Because you knew that, yes, they were infinite, you were finite, but you were the same. And you didn't just belong to them, they belonged to you. They awoke that consciousness in you. And that's what we should be after. Not I came in and I said, oh, my great guru, I fell on my face. And he said, yes, my child, I've been waiting for you. But now come with me. I will show you the wisdom of the ages. Well, there are people that like that. They like that theater. So good, let them be happy. Of course, it's all lies, but except for that, why complain? All right, let me shut up. Blessed are the merciful, so let me shut up. Let me see how much time I've got. Oh my, you're condemned to about 25 more minutes. All right, of course you've always got the turn off button. See, I don't. I've committed myself for an hour. See, I'm just your servant. I hope you don't mind me joking like this, but you see, there's two ways to look at the world. See the humorous part of it, or see the horrid part of it and wish to God you were dead and everything else in the world is dead. So I've chosen this. How can I attain samadhi? By the constant japa and the regular meditation of Soham. Soham yoga, that's how you can do it. Because that's its nature. What is samadhi? See, it means oneness, unity. As unity with the divine consciousness. And at the very beginning of relativity, the prime Purusha, the Adi Purusha, the source of this, said, Soham Asmi. That's in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. You may be tired of me mentioning this. I am Soham, not I have given Soham, I have spoken Soham. I am Asmi. Aham, also, then we say, Soham, I am Soham. Why don't we say Soham Asmi? If you want to get away from In fact, you can do that and then write me a letter saying, I say Soham as me, and I like that much better. Sure you do, because it won't take you to where you should be, because you don't want to be where you should be. When we breathe in, the very breath, and understand our movement of the lungs, that's just the most objective manifestation of a deep primal impulse. And so is exhalation. It's actually an impulse that is in our Atma, in our self. And part of the reflecting of that Atman is So-hum. And So-hum turns into the physical breath as we've come down into this body. It's a presence. It's divine presence. It's our presence as an Atma, and it's the presence of the Paramatma. And Samadhi is the experience of unity with the Absolute. It isn't not having a heartbeat, not breathing, being out, not unaware, all turned into infinite light. Now there's an experience that's true. I mean, that I'm not disparaging that, but don't mistake it for self-realization. Self-realization is consciousness. And you get it through So-hum, and only through So-hum. Now, you can put yourself in a trance by saying various mantras, and you can go into kind of a very indrawn experience and state where you maybe you don't even hear what's going on around you, and people have to shake you, and so on. Though that's the way with delusionals too. I've seen it. I've seen it around Anandamayi, where phonies decide to go in that state and show Ma they were Mahayogis. What did Ma do? Well, one time she simply snapped her fingers and shouted in this woman's face and said, "Jiao, get out of here." Oh my, the joy permeated Mother. So, anyhow, sadhana, 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 So-hum sadhana, So-hum sadhana, So-hum sadhana. That's how you do it. All right. How does one know if one is meant to live a monastic life versus a householder's life? By meditating, by getting in touch with yourself, and you understand to get in touch with yourself, just as you may have to go through many rooms to meet the owner of a house, or as we do, think of how many rooms you go through sometimes to see the doctor. So you have to go through maybe many rooms through meditation, but when you get in touch with yourself, then you'll know. It's called Swabhava, the very Bhava, the very consciousness of the self. And those in that Bhava can then follow Swakarma, the karma that will lead to the revelation of the self, and the way of life which will do that is called the Swadharma. And that is how you will know. Otherwise, you won't know. You can mistake it. Oh, you can't imagine how sad it is. I mean this. There are thousands of miserable men in India wearing this color, just going from place to place to get the next meal free. Disillusioned and living hopelessly, and some of them in anger and resentment. And then if they see some aspiring young person who is thinking of the sadhu life, then they just blast at them and and tell them, watch out, you don't know what you could be getting yourself into. And they're not warning you like a compassionate person, saying, be careful before you do it. They're saying, don't do it. That's because they're ignorant. They should say, find out if you should or shouldn't, like me, you see. So, get in touch with your true self and find out if you should. But there should be, somewhere along the line, an intense desire to do one or the other. But that's very tricky because, we say, well, are we supposed to have desires? I said desire, but if there's something deep within that is moving toward it, but even that you have to be careful. It isn't a force from the ego. And therefore, if you're not a yogi, you're never going to know it. You're never going to figure it out. And the truth is, if you're not a yogi, it doesn't matter whether you're a householder or a sannyasi. You're a dud, and your life's going to be miserable. I have a question about gurus and their supposed infallibility. I do not mean to be disrespectful, but guru infallibility is just a mite suspect. Any thoughts that can help me? Understand that there aren't any gurus that are absolutely infallible. Because ultimately there's only one guru, and that's God. I'm serious. There are upa-gurus. No true guru claims to be a guru. That I can tell you. The real yogis are the not yogis. And Jesus was a not yogi. So he said to his disciples, I don't call you disciples, I call you friends. That's right in the gospel. That's why the Quakers called themselves the Society of Friends. I am your friend. You are my friends. That's how a true spiritual teacher. Now, in a sense, if you look at Sri Gajanana Maharaj's words, he uses the term guru and uses the term sadguru. Sadguru is someone who leads you to the truth by telling you the truth. And the truth is, thou art that. You are the divine self. And that's not a worthy teacher, if that's all they can tell you. Then they say, and here's how you do it. So they are disciples themselves of the one guru. And they teach you. The great Frank Laubach had a wonderful system for literacy in various countries, including India, and was called Each One Teach One. In other words, you teach someone to read and you tell them, teach others to read, as I'm teaching others to read. And so literacy could spread. So this happens. But a real teacher, and a teacher is needed in some form, but by the way, you can read it off a page, and that's your teacher. All you need to know is I remember when I was even a child, one of the number one TV programs was called Dragnet, and the main character would continually say, I just want the facts, ma'am. And so if that's a real teacher just gives you the facts, and you should be, if you're a real disciple, you just want to know the facts. Therefore, they hand it over to you and say, well, that's it. Gajanana Maharaj would say, I have friends. I teach my friends. He wouldn't let anyone call him a guru. He'd say, no, I'm your friend. But you're not much of a friend, of course, if you don't follow the path to the divine when somebody has been kind enough to show you. And that's Guru's grace. We all have grace on one another. When somebody is troubled, we help. That's our grace. We have kripa. It isn't just God and just great realized masters. So the term Guru's grace is the knowledge of Soham Sadhana. That is the fact. And therefore, they don't need to be infallible. because they're here in this world. And it's nice to say, oh, I came here because God said there are those who need you. No, teaching you is also their sadhana. So just being in the human condition and being confined to a human body with a human brain, how are you going to be infallible? And who needs to be infallible? The only time you need to be infallible will be if you're directing the whole world. And that will come one day, but not now. Right? What do you advise us to a daily spiritual routine? All day long, from when you wake to you sleep, do your best. Of course, you can't do it right in the beginning. To continually be aware of your breathing and mentally intone, not just say intone. So when you inhale spontaneously and when you spontaneously exhale, hum, so, hum, so, hum. So do that all the time. And then sit. You sit upright. Close your eyes. No, you don't concentrate on the third eye or any of that nonsense. You can kind of look down like so. You don't have to, but you can. And then you close your eyes. And then you keep up the japa in time with the breath. And in time, you become aware of different areas of your body because it's working on it. You don't put your mind there. You just keep, the mind is in the sound, so hum. Now you have to be a little aware of your breath, but just peripherally. And go on like that. And yes, your consciousness will, after a while, go up into the Sahasrara, but you don't have to worry about that. And Kachari Mudra, which is the turning up of the eyes, will occur. If it doesn't occur spontaneously, it's like making the motions of painting a picture when there's nothing there and there's no canvas and there's no brush. When it's the real thing, see, mudras are eye positions, not body positions, not finger positions. That's all of Hatha Yoga and Tantra. Of real yoga, where am I? Okay. Of real yoga, it's only eye and you, and they are spontaneous eye positions, not deliberate eye positions. That's very, very important for you to know. So anyway, you sit, you close your eyes, and you just keep breathing with the japa. Because the fact you're not moving and so on, then you can become aware. You become aware of your subtle levels. You may think that's part of your body. Oh, my nervous system's this and that, and it may. But you're able to experience, and it's experiencing so, and you experience it more. And don't say, what will it be like? Because if I could tell you what it was like, it'd be fake. Believe me, you can go beyond this world in a sense in a matter of minutes when you practice the sadhana correctly. Absolutely true. I am married and have 2 children. How can I lead a spiritual life in this situation? Like Grahastha yogis have for thousands of years. You do the japa and you do the meditation. And working out how to do it, because I don't know your household life. I don't know your situation. I don't know how old your children are. I don't know what kind of a spouse you have. It has to be tailor-made by you. Learn Soham Sadhana, apply Soham Sadhana as truly the best you can, not as the most convenient you can or the easier you can. And learn the principles of Sanatana Dharma. Hinduism, learn it. We've put out 2 books on Hinduism. One is called Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religion, and the other is called Hinduism, the universal religion. They both should be read, and you follow it. And don't say, how can I follow it? If you can't figure out how to follow it, well, either you're not capable of it or you don't want to do it. Now that doesn't sound very nice, but thou art that. So meditate, and in meditation, and I don't mean you put the question up to God, you meditate, and when your consciousness is purified, not have to be totally purified, your intuition will be awakened, your spiritual intuition will be awakened, and you'll have the wisdom to know what to do. Don't ask anybody's advice. And they'll say, well, 1, 2, 3, and this is how you... You see, it's your swadharma, your self-dharma, your swakarma, your self-karma. And you must intelligently, by your will, do the needful, not because somebody else told you. If somebody comes to you and says, here, Swami Nirmalananda told me to give this to you. Oh, that's nice of him. But somebody comes to you and says, here, I'm giving this to you. Don't you have a whole different response? So in the same way, we should follow the ways of Dharma, but the time has to come where we know what they are, and therefore we do it. And I'm aware that there are people that like to use their marriage and use their children as an excuse. And if you want to, great. You've got them, you might as well do something with them. So use them to keep you from going to God. Just as easy as can be. And you can say, oh, well, I used to go for that yoga stuff, but it was so unpractical, I almost ruined my marriage. Go for it. Sadhana is the only thing there is. There's no success in anything if there isn't sadhana. Okay. Now, all right. I would like to know whether the departed soul gets our prayers and the love we express. If they're capable of it in the other world, if they're a level of evolution which they can, they will. If they're not, they won't. So naturally you say, well, then is it going to do them any good? Chances are not. I mean, that's the truth. We just have to. And anyway, when you speak to a person who needs advice, you don't know whether they're going to take it or not. But if you have a friendly feeling and you care about them, you do it. So you pray. Because you see, maybe they've gone, say, 5 months ago, and they're in such a situation. If you pray and you can sit and be quiet and just visualize them and talk to them, they may pick it up, but it may not. Let's say they're gone and it doesn't reach them. You keep it up because, see, if they grow, because just as this world's incarnation is meant for growth, so is the astral world. So, say half a year from now, they may be able to pick it up. So you just keep it up. If it's 20 years ago from now, it'll benefit them. So keep it up. They will eventually know. Or you can pray to holy spiritual beings, angels, saints, and say, will you please go to so-and-so and bless them? And that can work also. Believe me, it does. So do it and know that the best will be done. Because if you really feel, if it's real love, not just possessiveness and not the desire to manipulate, which we have even here in this world, that positive vibration will go out from you, and if it doesn't benefit them, it will benefit some other soul. How do they help the departed soul? That's in so many ways. The vibration of the prayers may help them, and like infuse in their spiritual environment. Some they know you love. Sometimes if you pray, like I say, higher spirits will come to them and help them. They may help them by teaching them. If they're afraid, they may calm them. And then they may say, you can now come up to a higher level, and they go to a higher level. But they help because we're all one, we're all interconnected, and your aspiration for them and your love for them goes right directly to them. It's just whether you and I don't have the ability to get that, to reach them, and we have to realize that can be true, and then they may not have the ability to receive it. You see? It is blessed to both give and receive, to both know how to give and how to receive, and some people have the knowledge of both and some don't. Okay? I don't mean to be flippant, please. How can they understand the teachings of Jesus better? Do sadhana and open your consciousness, and you'll learn from the source that Jesus learned. You won't just have to understand, you'll know. And read reliable, and read books and read reliable things about his teachings. First of all, get the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. That is the true gospel. That is very genuine. A great and holy soul, born unbelievably spiritual gifted, even as a child. And he went what we call Brahma Muhurta. At that time, he would literally see, and he would speak out what he saw from this meditative state, and it was all written down, and that's where we have it. Now, no book is perfect, and no book can contain the whole truth because that's too vast. But there you'll find the real teachings of Jesus, which of course, and his real life, which was his time in India and his being a great master teacher by what he learned in India. But the Aquarian Gospel is wonderful. And by the way, I've written a 2-volume commentary on it. I expect you believe that I could, with my computer, be long-winded enough to have gotten 2 volumes, but I don't think they're without value. And I cite other sources that support what the Aquarian Gospel says. But that is perhaps the biggest thing. More reliable is, as I say, the Aquarian Gospel. Now, there are other things that pretend to be about Jesus, his life, and they're either fabrications, well, and therefore fantasies. But most of all, Jesus was not unique. Jesus went up the ladder of evolution just like you and I are going up the ladder of evolution. And therefore, we can walk the path Jesus walked. The path of Christ is not the path of his teachings. And not the path of imitating his example as best we know. It is Soham Sadhana. He was a not yogi. He practiced Soham Sadhana and became what he was. And you and I can become what he was by that practice. And then you don't just understand the teachings of Jesus better. You become the embodiment of the wisdom that was in those teachings. You see? You yourself are the way and the truth and the light. And the hour is up. So thank you. Thank you for your patience. If there was such a thing as a course in how to quit rambling and get to the point, I'd take it, but there isn't one, so it isn't my fault, is it? So anyway, I like talking to you. I like the fact you want to hear about these things. I admire the fact that you can ask questions that show that you already, yes, you already are persons of wisdom. And therefore, the only thing left for me is to say, Namaste, Namaste.